the study. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of the famous single-handed round the world sailing race, the Vendée Globe. We'll be looking at the book with some illustrations of the stories of the Vendée Globe race, and I'll be showing you the official website. So relax, listen to the paper sounds. The Vendée Globe is the legendary single-handed sailing race, non-stop around the world and without assistance. This voyage is a journey down the Atlantic, across the Indian and Pacific Oceans, and back up the Atlantic. From the start in Les Sables d'Olonne in mid-autumn, on the Atlantic coast of France, to the heart of the Southern Ocean in full austral summer, and a wintry return in January and February. The last 8th edition saw its circumnavigation accomplished in 74 days and 3 hours. In this extreme race, crews are exposed to freezing cold, temperatures, gigantic waves, and heavy winds of the Southern Ocean, as well as tricky weather fronts up and down the Atlantic. The circumference of the Earth is 44,996 kilometers, or 24,296 miles. However, during the previous 8 editions of the Vendée Globe, most competitors sailed over 28,000 miles, about 52,000 kilometers, due to the conditions and the wind. There have been several circumnavigational speed challenges in the past, but the precedence of the single-handed, non-stop, round-the-world yacht race really began in 1968 with the Sunday Times Golden Globe race from Falmouth via the Cape of Good Hope around the Southern Ocean and Cape Horn. This was a grueling race given the conditions, the limits of the vessels of the time, and without the modern satellite communications and navigation that we enjoy today. After 313 days at sea, British sailor Robin Knox Johnston was the only one to finish. It was not until 1982 that the single-handed round-the-world race was revived, this time in stages, and with the sponsorship of BOC, later becoming known as the Velux Five Oceans race. After winning the BOC Challenge twice, yachtsman Philippe Chanteau introduced the idea of a new, non-stop, single-handed race that would become the Vendée Globe. On the 26th of November 1989, 13 sailors took part in the first edition, which lasted over 3 months. Only 7 returned to Les Sables d'Olonne. As of 2020, there have been 8 editions, and 167 contenders have taken part in this extraordinary race, of which 89 managed to cross the finish line. The 9th edition a solo race, and no one apart from the skipper is allowed aboard the boat during a round-the-world voyage. The notable exception is, of course, when a fellow competitor is rescued, and that has happened. There have been several incidents in the history of the Vendée Globe, including dismasting, capsizing, and collisions with things such as containers and even a whale. In the third edition, Pete Goss arrived to save Rafael Nelly and dropped him off in New Zealand. And in 2009, Vincent Rieu from PRB rescued Jean Le Cam when he capsized near Cape Horn. The only pit stop that a competitor in the Vendée Globe is allowed involves returning to Les Sables d'Olonne within 10 days of the start. Michel Desjoyers did this in 2008 and set off again 40 hours after the start, but went on to win the race. Skippers are allowed to stop by anchoring in a creek, for example, but they are not allowed to step ashore beyond the high tide mark. In 2000, Yves Pallier took advantage of this to repair his boat. Others have dropped anchor without going ashore. For example, Marc Guillemot to climb the mast in the 2008-9 edition. The only assistance allowed is when the sailor returns to Les Sables d'Olonne just after the start, meaning he would lose time. But apart from this exception, everyone must rely on their own devices. Navigation assistance is strictly prohibited. The sailors have to find their own way around the world, carry out any repairs following damage which is likely to happen, and take care of themselves if they become injured or ill. In this particular case, they are allowed to seek advice from the race doctor. Contenders are strictly forbidden to go alongside another boat or to allow a third party aboard for technical assistance. Sailors, however, may consult the designers or their technical team to get information about how best to carry out a repair, but they must carry out the work alone with the means that they have on board while continuing to sail as best they can. As for every sailor, an understanding of the weather is paramount to good course planning. For the sailors of the Vendée Globe, the route crossing the equator and 3 oceans, a constant monitoring of the systems is required. These include high-pressure systems, stable with moderately winds, and depressions with strong winds. When these high and low pressure systems meet, this determines the strategy they will adopt. The Atlantic lakes traversing the North and South Atlantic Ocean from Sables d'Olonne to the Southern Ocean and back are at right angles to the general directions of the fronts, whereas the Indian and Pacific lakes in the Southern Ocean are in the same direction as the weather systems. The first leg from Les Sables d'Olonne and the Cape of Good Hope at the tip of South Africa, sailors are confronted with the anticyclone of the Azores in the North Atlantic and its counterpart of St. Helena in the South Atlantic. The challenge is to find the best balance, far enough from low-pressure areas to avoid the strongest winds, without getting stuck in the no-wind zones of the high pressures. The second leg consists consists in taking advantage of the westerly weather systems coming between the Cape of Good Hope and Cape Horn, being pushed around the Southern Ocean. The third leg is similar to the first, avoiding the anticyclones of St. Helena and the Azores. The first and third legs are also marked by the convergence of the systems in the northern and southern hemispheres, resulting in little or no wind, known as the doldrums. Hot and humid air masses carried by trade winds of the two hemispheres meet and generate unstable air, bringing alternating calm and stormy squalls. Vigilance and intuition are indispensable on these legs. In less than a month, the frost of Vendée gives way to the equatorial heat, tropical showers, and then subarctic polar cold. The Southern Ocean, which represents almost 3/5 of the circumnavigation, comprises a chain of depressions originating from Brazil, Madagascar, and New Zealand. Sailors try to keep to the train of downwind conditions, navigating from one front to another without being caught in anticyclonic tentacles. Powerful northwesterlies, fronts with violent westerly squalls, changing to a southwesterly freeze, are trying for the sailors as well as for their vessels. To limit the risk of encounters with icebergs, race direction establishes a zone prohibited to sailing, the Antarctic Exclusion Zone, which circles Antarctica between the 45 degrees south on the Ile Crozet side and 68 degrees south off Cape Horn. Consequently, this safety demarcation imposes a rather northerly trajectory, which flirts with the anticyclones of the Mascarenes in the Indian Ocean and Easter Island in the Pacific. Rounding Cape Horn after 50 days at sea, the stress of damage decreases and temperatures increase, but the 7,000 miles left to sail to reach Sable d'Olonne aren't the easiest ones. Once past Patagonia, there is still the anticyclone of St. Helena to avoid while negotiating stormy depressions coming from Brazil. There are adverse and irregular breezes, significant wind shifts, and fronts to cross. Once the Brazilian coast is within sight, the doldrums loom at the horizon before one is able to reach the trade winds of the northern hemisphere. Once again, sailors must avoid getting trapped in the calm of the anticyclone of the Azores in order to finally reach the Atlantic depressions, which can be more devastating than their austral counterparts in January. After 70 to 75 days at sea, the winner will finally be able to see the Nouche Buoy, which marks the finish line of the Vendée Globe in Les Sables d'Olonne. Let's have a look at the website. On the Vendée Globe, you can see there's a list of all of the skippers for the 2020 edition, and here you can see the rankings at the moment, where you can see there are what their speed is, when they've come in, whether they've been given time allotments or allowances for picking up, and there's a list of their names there and nationalities, as well as how many days it's taken them, so you can see how many have come in and how many are due yet to come in as of the time that this video is made. And you can see that several also have retired, including Alex Thompson and Hugo Boss, who went in the Cape of Good Hope. And you've got expected finishing times also we can have a look at the photos. So here you can see what's been happening during the 100-some-odd days that have passed as the skippers have sent their photos in from their boats, which makes it quite interesting for those watching, following the race from home, because we get updates when they're crossing the equator, when they've passed Cape Horn. And Jean Le Cam even had cartoons that he would post on his Instagram account. So it's you get to see really what these solo sailors are contending with day to day, what repairs they're carrying out, what troubles they've had. Some of them very positive, upbeat, talking about the conditions. So, some very intrepid sailors there, and also some very impressive survival stories this year, as well as almost every year of the Vendée Globe. Now you can see some of the women as well, Clarisse and Sam and Pipère. And there is Jean Le Cam. So he's ranked 4th, came in 61 years old, and this was his 5th Vendée Globe. You can see some pictures of his finish there, some photos. And you can see the boat called Yes We Cam. Now these boats measure 18.28 meters long, or 60 feet. They're in the Imilka 60-foot long class with a 4.5 meter draft. There's a large sail area, and they're the most powerful monohulls in the world to be sailed by a single-handed sailor. They can have a speed of more than 30 knots in downwind conditions. The Imilka class is the International Monohull Open Class Association. So you can see that Jean's boat has no foils. And here's Kojiro Shiraishi, very interesting competitor, always upbeat in his reports. He contended with a torn sail as well in the Southern Ocean. He is the first Asian sailor to have finished the Vendée Globe, and this is not his first either. His mentor was a very captivating sailor, and he's named his boat after him. Here we're looking at his DMG sailboat. Again, the Imilka class does have the standardized keel. In 2016, the biggest addition was the addition of foils, which is optional, which allows the hull to lift out of the water in upwind conditions, decreasing drag and allowing better performance. So you can see Shiraishi's boat has some foils attached there. They're both with the twin rudder. Now we're looking at Clarisse Crémet. She was a business student in several universities in the US and France, and came to sailing in the Channel Islands in Brittany. She's with Banque Populaire, no foils on her boat. There's twin rudders there, and you can see the hull construction. So very nice as we twist around and have a look at those hulls. And you can see that there's not a lot of room inside this racing hull for sleeping, cooking, and general living. So it's a very difficult journey. One of the remarkable stories in this 9th edition, 2020 to 2021, was the rescue of Kevin Escoffier in PRB by Jean Le Cam. Kevin's boat had a specific design. They're not sure what caused it to break apart, but it hit a wave. The bow went under the wave and the boat broke apart so quickly that Kevin barely had time to phone in his mayday. Before all of his instruments went, he abandoned to his lifeboat and within a few hours was spotted by Jean Le Cam. Jean Le Cam couldn't get to him until the next day, so he spent the night in his lifeboat. But then finally, Jean Le Cam was able to pick him up the following day, and he was rescued by the French Navy off the coast of South Africa. And there were about 3 boats involved in trying to find him. The interesting thing is that Jean Le Cam was rescued by the PRB contestant a few editions back when he capsized in the Southern Ocean. The winner receives the Vendée Globe trophy and is allowed to keep it for life. This trophy is silver, plated on bronze, designed by Philippe Macheret and constructed at their foundry. It is a boat in full sail, surrounded by a terrestrial globe, sitting on a pedestal which is in the shape of a winch, 60 centimeters high, 30 centimeters in circumference, and weighs about 10 kilograms. So my friend, I hope you've enjoyed the story of the Vendée Globe and the 2020 edition update, as well as all of the nice paper sounds